You have to give credit where credit is due. Independent developers have given us some brilliant games. Some of them garner a lot of attention and respect across the community. Also, Digital Lego was a stroke of genius. So here we have an indie game up on the chopping block. Who's talking about Shantae and the Pirates Coast? Well, that would be Indent, but you can call me Dan. Shantae dates back to the Game Boy Color in 2002. Put this into perspective, the Game Boy Advance was already out for almost a year by then. Despite some smart programming tricks to get the game looking as great as possible, the release was so late in the system's life cycle that the success was short-lived. Plus, it only originally released in the US, so good luck getting hold of a physical copy of that game. It did eventually get a sequel on DSiWare. The Shantae series was created by WayForward Technologies. Yeah! Now that's a name I can get behind. When I think of indie games and developers, I usually think of Xbox Live Arcade in 2006. Net Eurose for the PlayStation counts, right? So that's 1997. So it's weird to think that the WayForward crew have been around since 1990. They keep themselves financially stable by producing a couple of licensed games. You know, just a couple. It's still clear that their passion and focus lies with their own independent projects. Storytime over. There's a bunch of other stuff that happened, but I won't pretend to know everything because I've never actually played the older Shantae game, or other original works such as Cat Girl Without Salad. What, does the supercomputer version come with salad? Onwards! Shantae is a genie, or at least she was a genie. Shantae wakes up from a mysterious recurring dream, when all of a sudden an invasion breaks out across Scuttletown. It seems that towards the end events of Risky's revenge, Shantae lost a bunch of her powers. That wasn't a spoiler. Shantae and Bolo both bring this up in the first minutes of the game. Now, one of the first things I've noticed about Shantae is the controls. You can move, jump, and whip from the get-go, and man does it make Shantae feel limited from the start. Shantae doesn't have any momentum when moving or jumping. You're either moving at full speed or standing completely still. It's a little tricky to explain how this feels, but play Super Mario World for a couple of minutes, then play a bit of this, and you'll get an idea as to how different they feel at platforming. If you play any of the original Sonic the Hedgehog games, you can get a good idea as to how momentum can be used in platforming. One of the big reasons why a lot of people regard Sonic 2, 3, and Knuckles above the original Sonic was the inclusion of the spin dash. It allowed you to manipulate Sonic's momentum at will, giving Sonic much greater platforming options, and most notably, acceleration. Have you ever heard the term floaty applied to a character's control? This is when you notice a disconnect between the movement speed and acceleration of a character compared to their physical characteristics. Taking a look at Shantae here, she's quite sleek and nimble, not clad in armor or wielding a weapon like Shovel Knight. Instead, Shantae has the unusual method of swinging her large ponytail around like a whip. All things considered, having immediate urgency on ground and air would make sense with Shantae's physical characteristics. Now, the first thing that any normal person is going to notice is the music, which, oh lord, is it sweet. Most of the tracks are really upbeat and will help see you through the entire experience while swaying your hips to the beat. A lot of the tracks have a soft underlining of dread, danger, and darkness to match the Arabian theme of Shantae's origins. But since we have pirates, zombies, and palm trees? It opens up the soundtrack to a whole fantasy mystical style. I'm a big believer in video game soundtracks establishing an identity of some kind of pattern which holds consistent throughout the soundtrack, which helps to establish itself among other video games. This could be a powerful melody, an interesting combination of musical genres, or the use of a particular instrument. I'll go ahead and say I definitely applied this factor to the Shantae series. Let's face it, you don't hear too many accordions in video games sounding this great. So a 5-minute pass through Scuttletown and we're confronted by Ammo Barun. Sky recognized him, so I presume this is a recurring antagonist.
Boss fight! Bring it on, Ammo Barun! Let's dance!
This one's pretty straightforward. The boss fights are one of the game's strong points, actually. The boss battles themselves have plenty of remnants of good conveyance without text, dialogue, or markers thrown all over the place. You know, the necessary feedback to detect enemy weaknesses, while still granting the player the full satisfaction of overcoming the challenge. As you advance through levels, you'll notice that the enemies will take more of a beating and the Shantae will start taking multiple points of damage. Throughout each level, you can uncover squid hearts. Collect 4 hearts and visit the Squidsmith in Scuttletown to increase your heart count, before you settle towards Saliva Island. Risky Boots mentions that the Pirate Master is using dark magic to awaken himself from the grave. It was also the substance responsible for turning her crew of Tinkerbats into Cacklebats. So scattered across islands you'll find Cacklebats which you can defeat and absorb the dark magic using the Genie Lamp. If you absorb all 20 of the Cacklebats' dark magic, hopefully something good will happen later on. As you traverse the dens of evil of each island, you'll start to uncover Risky Boots' equipment, such as the pistol, which lets Shantae hit switches from a distance, as well as giving Shantae some ranged offense. Though my favourite would be the pirate hat, which Shantae can pull out while airborne to slow her descent, giving her some extensive mobility.
Now we're on Spiderweb Island.
Get it? It's Halloween! Not many spiders yet, or even spider webs. Okay, so as you can see, the pistol deals very little damage. Your hair whip is still superior since you can launch consecutive attacks just as fast as firing the pistol. Still, no spiders around. A heads up, they're about to eat my words, or perhaps my brains.
See? Look, I told you there'd be a giant spider somewhere. Also, speaking of which... Ah!
That ended quicker than it began. Shantae literally showed up and commanded it to leave, and the thing just submits. This humongous arachnid was about to make topping out of Rottytops, but the Half-Genie hero, who, by the way, is the same size as Rottytops, shows up and it's time to skedaddle. You know, I would have guessed this would have led up to a boss fight against the spider, or saving Rottytops and escaping from the spider. Maybe the spider would escape with Rottytops and Shantae would have to give chase. Nope, Shantae's just the best. Perhaps the vibrant colours startled the beast. After rescuing Rottytops, Shantae demands an apology for all the trouble she'd caused in the past. Rottytops quickly breaks into an injury act. Shantae, naive as she is, swoops at Rottytops and sets off on her merry way. So, while carrying Rottytops, Shantae can still jump and move at the same speed, but you can't attack in any way. So, Shantae is pretty much defenseless in this state. Notice that the HUD is missing, including your heart counter. One hit, and you'll be sent back to the beginning of that area. Your objective is to evade the enemies it throws in your way. Keep moving, and move fast, or else am I missing something here? Aren't I running from something? Or a time limit before Rottytops bites the dust? Now, like I said, it's made clear to the player that Rottytops is probably lying about her injury. Despite that, Shantae seems convinced enough that Rottytops needs help. She even paces in place out of urgency, which you're going to be seeing a lot more often than you would expect from a level called Run, Run, Rottytops. And just listen to that music! So this is the first time you encounter any of these enemies. For the most part, conveying how you can evade them is done seamlessly. I'm just not that great at this game. Okay, I've got to keep up the pace to get past these guys. I still have to get used to Shantae's controls here. Okay, let's give that another try and be a bit more delicate, breathing between the... What? Didn't I get past it the first time? Again! Hope all of you are seeing what's happening here, because I was moving at the exact same speed, and this monster changed its timing completely. They only react once you're close to these things, unlike these spiked pillars, which are on a timer. They operate on their own regardless of where you are on the screen. But then this time it wasn't even close. The next time it may just block you entirely. Alright, I get it, I should just wait it out and keep moving. Oh. Right here is an element which I believe ruins this whole section of the game. You know, elements which force you to wait because of incoherent rules. It's almost as if their reaction box is undulating while they're idle. So the only surefire way you can get past these things without wasting time, ironically, is to wait in front of each and every one of them, no matter how they decide to react. If ever there was a miscommunication between the artists and the designers, this is it. It really seemed like this whole level was building up to something big, anything other than being stopped in succession by broken AI. Not to mention this level is called Run, Run, Rottytops. That's double emphasis on speed! I haven't learned all that much about programming, but if there was one thing that I learned, it's that inconsistent results can potentially be worse than negative results. If an item is straight up not working, you know you haven't met the requirements for the product to function at all. When you have inconsistent results like this under the same conditions, then you have some fluctuating values somewhere in your code which is screwing with your design. But then there's these ones here that always seem to react the same way each time. So these things have really weird reaction boxes. I don't know, maybe the Wii U just can't handle it. Despite my earlier gripes, Spider Boss makes its debut as an all-out boss battle in the depths of Cackle Tower. Even though you pick up a piece of equipment in each den of evil, I appreciate that they didn't just use that as the boss's obligatory weakness. You know, some designers out there would have been like, "No! Hats! My weakness! Shantae, you're too fashionable for me!" What a pushover of a spider. That didn't happen. The bosses are all the more enjoyable because of the challenge they pose. Most of the bosses have a second phase to up the ante too. I want to wrap things up soon, but I want to go over my venture across Tanline Island real quick. So we got a desert ruin-like level. It should be noted that this is the first major point of the game which requires backtracking, but eventually you gain access to Tanline Temple. Upon entering, everyone mistakes Shantae for their long-lost princess and escort her to a private chamber, as well as being stripped of her equipment and a change of clothes for something more traditional? No, that sounds about right.
Time to paint the town red!
This whole thing is a sneaking stealth mission, but instead of being caught and thrown back in prison, you're just escorted back to your private quarters. Turns out that Risky Boots and Sky were also mistaken for the exact same princess and locked up. Now there's one more chamber left to unlock. It has to be Bolo. We gotta have fair representation of males and females, you know. Show me Bolo in his new garments.
So I missed.
I was far more upset about that than I should have been. I feel so sorry for Bolo. I'm looking forward to Half-Genie Hero. The latest trailer from E3 2016 revealed a few interesting elements, like this sliding section which seems similar to the Run Run Rotty-Tops level done right. Artistically, it's much cleaner. They've stepped away from pixelated sprites in favour of 2D hand-drawn characters with a 3D environmental design. More freedom with fluent animation and in-game character expression. Think of it this way, WayForward really pushed the Game Boy Color to its limits to make the original Shantae look as visually pleasing as possible. They've still been working with pixelated characters since Risky's Revenge and Pirate's Curse. Then we have this really early mock-up of the original Shantae when they were considering developing the title for the PlayStation. Look at that. Hand-drawn characters in a 3D environment. Looking primitive, but why not look back to the original concept on the way forward? And of course, the music. But I don't have anything else to say other than hurry up! Another year, another huge hiatus until I produce another video. Nonetheless, thanks for watching the now titled episode of DesignSection. It's certainly better than calling it Game Design in Shantae. Hopefully I can get on top of that now and produce more videos. What do you think of the video? Do you agree with my assessment? Do you agree that I'm stupid? Feel free to let me know. And subscribe if you'd like to keep up with DesignSection and other videos as well. Well, I'm ready to go, so see you next time.